Welcome to Roundhouse Roulette, a Walker, Texas Ranger podcast. Each week we recap and review one of the 200 existing Walker, Texas Ranger episodes randomly selected by Roundhouse Roulette. I'm Evan Dalton, here with my brother Adam and our brother from another mother, Mr. Bob Leahy. What's new, guys?
Not much, man. How you doing?
You know, I'm doing all right. We just got chickens, so we're pretty much doomsday prepped at this point.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Good move, man. Good move.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't think it was, but we'll see. Well, we hope you guys have all been able to safely avoid reality through TV reruns as we have. We'd like to take a moment to thank all of the essential workers for allowing us to dissect Chuck Norris's pivotal punch-packing primetime masterpiece, Walker, Texas Ranger.
Amen to that.
Today, we'll recap and review Season 7, Episode 13, Special Witness. But before we dig in, we'd like to take a minute to discuss some of the episode's multiple special guests and some reboot news. For a Walker, Texas Ranger episode involving the Special Olympics, the casting department netted not one, not two, but three special guest stars. Andrea F. Friedman portraying Special Olympian Sally, a cameo from former Dallas Cowboy Deion Sanders, and the ever-wily Gary Busey, portraying villain of the week, Donovan Riggs.
Yeah, he definitely did not disappoint in this episode, as I'm sure we'll discuss, but they definitely didn't spare any expense on this episode, huh?
Yeah, we'll get into how many explosions there are, but I think some things may have suffered for the amount of money they had to pay for Gary Busey.
I can't imagine that Deion cost too much. Although it was kind of the height of his career.
Yeah.
He was only there for one scene. He maybe had two lines. And
Is this a real Special Olympics qualifier, or was it fake for the TV show? Some parts of it were definitely scripted.
Yeah, I bet they probably did one of those things where they had one going on anyway, and then they're just like, hey, stay after and we'll film this Walker episode. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know, because Chuck Norris and Clarence Gilliard are out there, helping them with their exercises or, long jump and all that stuff. They probably weren't actually doing that.
I would hope that they would have kind of looped it in and been like, hey, do you guys want to be on an episode of Walker, Texas Ranger? If you'd like to show up a little bit early, we're going to be doing a few scenes.
I would hope so, too, because they're dealing with a whole morality thing if they're play acting a Special Olympics with a bunch of people that may or may not know the difference.
This might be the only time I've seen the Special Olympics on a TV show.
I don't know.
Let's get to our special guest stars. Andrea F. Friedman, who plays the Special Olympian Sally, they bill her as a special guest star. She literally is a Special Olympian, but she is pretty much like a main character of the whole show. She's been all over TV. She's been on Law & Order SVU. She was on...
Touched by an Angel, don't forget that.
Yep, another classic.
Yeah, I believe she was even on an episode of Family Guy.
I thought she did a good job. I think maybe the writers could have handled a few of her lines a little bit better, as I'm sure we'll talk about. But yeah, Deion Sanders was definitely there for maybe a hot minute to get his cameo in, and then he was gone.
I was pretty disappointed, actually, that they didn't have a scene with Trevette and Deion Sanders, because Trevette used to play for the Cowboys, so I would think they'd have a scene together. I wonder if that got left on the cutting room floor.
If they were talking about old times, that would have been a really awesome thing. Remember when we put powder in his jockstrap? Bob, you were saying one of the main villains who we didn't list here was in The Godfather, right?
Yeah, the guy who plays Morris Foley in this episode. Apparently he was in The Godfather. He had to get a few other credits. In all of these episodes, I have a little IMDb page up to see how all of our guest stars are doing in their career.
Now, he oversees Gary Busey's character, who is kind of a hired assassin in this episode. Morris Foley hires him. So technically they're both on the same level, wouldn't you say, as far as villainous?
Yeah, I was thinking about that when we were watching the episode. I think Morris, he's like the mob boss.
He's the overlord.
The big bad guy.
The Godfather, right? So to speak.
I don't know if I'd call him the villain, though. Gary Busey in the episode, I think we kind of have to bestow that crown upon him because,
a few scenes where they're kind of shown to be on equal footing a little bit.
They do seem to be buds. They play pool together. And, they drink milk together.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
That's a weird one. What the hell?
How did Gary Busey become super famous?
He was in Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, and
I think might have been the big thing.
He actually kind of played, I don't know, like a pseudo good guy in Predator 2.
So he's in some big action movies, huh?
Yeah.
Point Break, Under Siege.
Right.
The funny thing about Lethal Weapon was the main character, Mel Gibson, his name was Riggs. And in this episode of Walker, Texas Ranger, Gary Busey's character's name is also Riggs. So
that's interesting.
One of the top-rated movies I have is the Buddy Holly movie, starring Gary Busey as Buddy Holly.
What?
I still need to watch it. I haven't watched it.
Yeah, I saw that. It's 1978.
Yeah. So after watching this episode, I definitely now need to watch him sing to Peggy Sue.
Did you look at any of the screenshots of that movie?
Oh, yeah.
It sure is Gary Busey. Teeth and all, just huge teeth coming out. Maybe it's good, though. We don't know.
Yeah. And then the other one, we actually had a horror movie night over here, and one of my friends, Justin, gave us this DVD, The Ginger Dead Man, in which Gary Busey plays a serial killer who gets cremated, and then someone makes gingerbread cookies out of him, and he comes back from the dead and starts killing people as a CGI gingerbread cookie.
Wow.
My favorite Gary Busey film is a film called Surviving the Game, where Gary Busey plays a wealthy man who brings homeless people into the woods and hunts them for sport. Unfortunately, one of the people he brings in is Ice-T playing a homeless man. And Ice-T is like some former military dude who's living on the street.
Oh, no.
And he gets more than he can handle, that's for sure. We are forgetting one special guest here, Brandon Smith, who I think is worth noting, only that he's our first recurring reused actor from the episodes we've watched. If you guys recall a few episodes back in The Iceman, there's a fixer who has a penchant for sick Lamborghinis. That actor, Brandon Smith, plays the sleazy lawyer in this episode. And he plays different characters in 7 episodes of Walker, Texas Ranger.
He does have the look.
He sure does.
Wow.
They just had him on retainer. They're like, if we just need some random guy that has a few lines, but not too many so that we'll remember you.
That kind of just goes to show that the people that made Walker, Texas Ranger assumed that nobody would watch more than one.
Rightfully so.
Well, I guess that brings us to some reboot news here. Just as we here at Roundhouse Roulette are working on the final touches of our own logo, the TV show Reboot, entitled Walker, released their logo this week. I'm going to share it with you guys and get your reactions. Are you guys excited?
I can't
No,
wait.
not really.
We're on CBR.com, whatever the hell that means. It's hard to
wouldn't
tell.
recommend it.
Yeah, maybe comic book...
Rebellion.com,
and we're checking out the latest Walker news. Jared Padalecki's Walker, Texas Ranger Reboot debuts its logo. This is news here in the pandemic, by the way.
Big news, yeah.
Wait for it. What do you guys think?
Are they dropping the space Texas Ranger from the official?
They are. It's
They
pretty
are.
edgy.
Yeah, it was kind of confusing, to be honest.
No, I mean, I think the show should have always just been called Walker, but,
So, I don't know. What do you guys think? I don't really like the star. It kind of looks like a C.
Yeah, no, it definitely
Yeah.
Now
does.
that you've said it, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I think they were kind of like, well, we got to do something.
Yeah.
I really wish there was an I in the word Walker.
Taking place in Austin, Texas, the series centers on Padalecki's Cordell Walker as he finds his way back to his family after spending 2 years undercover in a high-profile case. A widower and father of 2 children, Walker discovers there's even more work to be done at home.
The dishes.
So
Wait,
he's
so
just going to be telling his kids to clean the dishes? That's awful. They've already ruined it when they tell me that it's based in Austin. Austin is not a cowboy town.
Dude.
Austin is like a hipster town.
I'm going to play the devil's advocate here, and I'm actually think that they're going to do a good job because literally all the CW superhero shows are episodes of Walker, Texas Ranger. They get X amount of fights in there. They're very formulaic, and this synopsis here is just laying the groundwork for him to do a few punches and kicks. And if he can beat up some like Austin hipsters, I'm in.
Yeah, you're forgetting one key element here.
I'm trying
Chuck
to.
Norris. Without Chuck Norris, how does that even work?
That's
How
true.
is that entertaining?
Walker, there's a microbrewery downtown that's been using proprietary yeast. Let's go bash some hipsters.
I got to pick up my artisan cowboy boots on the way there. They're not real leather, by the way.
He'll be wearing distressed jeans.
A lot to look forward to, guys.
Most definitely.
Well, if you're watching along at home and don't want any spoilers, hit pause and watch Season 7, Episode 13, Special Witness, and come back to us. Welcome back. Let's dig in, boys. This episode originally aired on January 16th, 1998, and is a prime late-period Walker, Texas Ranger, with the inclusion of additional sidekicks Detective Carlos Sandoval and fellow karate kicker Trent Malloy. Both characters would later be spun off to their own ill-fated CBS show, Sons of Thunder, lasting only 6 episodes before cancellation, and paving the way for future Walker sidekicks, who we all hate, Gage and Sidney. We'll kick things off by reading the DVD episode description. This one's pretty loaded for one sentence.
It is.
Walker attempts to protect a mentally disabled witness from the hire killer who stabbed Trent. Okay.
If I was just reading that, I'd be like, who's Trent?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I guess they assume that you know all the characters, so that's good.
For the uninitiated, Trent Malloy, I guess he helps Walker run his dojo. And as we said, they sort of were like the series' training wheels for sidekick duos. And they tried to spin them off and failed. I guess they didn't want to bring them back, so they brought back other people.
Because that's like bringing like a dead animal back to your show. You can't do that. You got to just evolve.
Sure. So to start things off, I just want to take a moment to talk about the name of this episode, Special Witness. And, you see that and you think, okay, well, I don't know what this episode's going to be about if you don't read the DVD synopsis. But for you to jump into an episode called Special Witness and immediately be launched into a regional tryout for the Special Olympics, I feel like using the term Special Witness is a bit too on the nose.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. The moment I realized that they were dealing with the Special Olympics in this episode, I just kind of cringed a little bit. But
there's so many cringy parts in this. But yeah, I mean, if our previous episodes are any indication of how this series deals with touchy topics as, say, race, I guess maybe their treatment of mental disabilities is pretty much on par with their treatment of other things.
But again, it's kind of like they feel like they're doing a service by letting people know that the Special Olympics exist.
It's so weird. The whole crew is there. I don't know what these people do in their free time. Well, actually, we do. It's like, does Trevette ever go home after work? No, he tags along with Walker and goes to a karate belt ceremony, or he goes to the Special Olympics to hang out with Deion Sanders. Like, what is this? And CD is retired, and he's just standing in the stands like, let me root on this person who doesn't know me from Adam.
No, he was serving up some chili too, though, in this episode.
Yeah, slinging some chili. Maybe they'll go to church, like this. Yeah, these are the things that they do.
Yeah, and then after church, you go over to CD's Bar and Grill. See, he's a businessman. He knows where the bread's buttered, and he shows up to butter it.
There's just no mystery as to what these people do in their free time.
We're not looking for mystery here. We're looking for action. And, this episode did have a good amount of action. Maybe not the kind that you would like, Evan, but I thought this episode was pretty breezy, and Gary Busey did not disappoint at all.
Yeah, so we see Gary Busey in action pretty soon.
Yeah, right off the bat, right?
Yeah.
We start in Chicago.
Yeah.
There's some generic blues music playing.
It sounded like
sounded familiar.
It sounded like a crooner kind of thing going on, right?
I do love so in the opening scene, Gary Busey's at the bar We find out right away that he drinks milk, which is kind of an interesting part of his character. But there's a man and his wife at a table having dinner, and it becomes pretty obvious that Gary Busey's going to go after this guy. The wife gets up, goes to the bathroom. Gary Busey comes over. I'm just going to call him Gary Busey. I'm not going to refer to him as his character name because I'm not going to remember that.
That's fine.
Yeah. But he sits down next to the guy, and the old neck snap. The guy just, his eyes closed like he went to sleep. And
yeah, I mean...
right at that point, I knew Gary Busey's here, and
he's snapping
he kills a
necks
guy
off
in the
the
opening,
back.
30 seconds.
Effortlessly snaps his neck.
Dude, it was like he twists the guy's neck and kills him and leaves him propped up for his wife to come back from the bathroom to find her husband dead. And she, at first, just thinks he's comatose.
Well, yeah, because his eyes are closed because, when you die, your eyes close, right?
Yeah.
So that's our introduction to Gary Busey's assassin character, Donovan Riggs. And then I want to say they weave back into the Special Olympics story.
Yeah, I mean, if there's any ambiguity as to whether or not Gary Busey's looking for trouble, the ridiculous transitions where they zoom and make really threatening whooshing noises.
Yeah, really good transitions.
Those will put you on edge enough.
So at the Special Olympics tryouts, we're introduced to the main character of this episode, Sally. She seems to be running, and you're expecting her to run to, someone supporting her on the sidelines, and she runs right to Walker. So you're pretty much like, oh, okay, this is going to be Walker's old friend this episode, right?
For sure. For
old
some
friend
reason,
who's like 10.
Yeah, for some reason, Walker and Alex are more parents to this child than her mother. It's very weird.
Yeah, that whole dynamic was kind of weird, which hopefully we'll dig into a little bit later, too. But anyway, I think the first time she does run to her mother, but then immediately goes to Walker. Because Walker's kind of like the mentor figure. But at the end of the episode, she just runs right to Walker. The mother was kind of there out of necessity.
Yeah, and I think the mother was also a single mother out of necessity for the plot.
What they were kind of trying to show was it's hard raising a mentally handicapped child. Oftentimes, fathers leave, and that's when Walker steps up.
It was just very weird that they just sort of glossed over that detail later in the episode where you get that backstory of my husband left when he found out she had Down syndrome, and then the guy was like, oh, okay, and then that was it. There's no moral lesson there or anything. It was just, this is backstory, and it's really intense, and we're just going to move away from this immediately. They know that the viewers don't really want to dive deep into anything that's super uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think that's what this episode's moral compass was trying to do. This actually is amazing, okay? How they did this is so amazing. Because they're like, how can we use the Special Olympics as a plot device? Maybe we can shed some light on how hard it is to be a parent of somebody with Down syndrome and the troubles they go through raising a child on their own. And, how can we also have a trained assassin kill somebody with Down syndrome in the same episode?
Oh, and this week we've got Gary Busey, so what can we do with him?
Yeah, let's throw it all in the bottle and shake it up.
Yeah. Guys, I think we bit off more than we can chew.
If you got any milk to go with that.
Oh my gosh. All right, so what happens after we get introduced to these two characters, Sally and Gary Busey's character, Donovan Riggs?
I guess we find out that somehow operating in the backstory here is the fact that Trent, who's the dojo co-leader with Walker.
Let's break it down here. He's the guy that mops the floor at Walker's dojo and occasionally wears a karate suit.
Yeah, and he's like the second best person that everyone knows at karate besides Walker.
Right, they do point that out at least once.
Yeah. So, he apparently was witness to some crime that we never learn about, once again. They don't really feel like explaining that these career criminals, what they did. We just know that they're bad guys. So, Trent was a witness, and he's going to testify, in a day or two. And in the meantime, Trent is busy being a goody two-shoes, helping people with chores, and doing a self-defense class for women.
Yeah, that was shoehorned in here, too.
Another
Great.
Passion project of Walker, Texas Ranger. And, we learn that Gary Busey is being called in by Morris Foley to basically assassinate Trent.
Now, Morris Foley is the guy that Trent's testifying against. And he's
Yes.
the one that was in the movie The Godfather, Gary Busey's boss.
Super true.
This is where everything really comes together because Morris Foley pulls in his lawyer, who, as you pointed out, played different characters in 7 different episodes of Walker, Texas Ranger. And he tells Morris Foley that his odds of winning the case are 5 out of 6. At which point, Morris Foley pulls out a revolver and takes out all the bullets except one and stages a Russian roulette.
It's true. This is our first roulette scenario on Roundhouse Roulette.
Yeah. Truth be told, I didn't expect to see any. So. Maybe a casino scene, but yeah. Pleasant surprise.
So he pretty much says, do you like these odds? 5 out of 6? I don't think so. You get out of here. He tells his lawyer that he's going to take care of the witness, who is Trent. And what he does is he hires in an assassin who turns out to be Gary Busey, who so effortlessly displayed his assassination skills earlier in the episode by snapping that guy's neck.
Yeah, well, he snapped that guy's neck and then stuck around to see the guy's wife discover him dead. And as he left the building, he touched the door handle on his way out and left a fingerprint there. He's a pretty bad assassin.
He's probably like one of those guys that doesn't have fingerprints. If you're an assassin, you gotta just melt your fingerprints.
No, he doesn't, because they then use fingerprints later to identify him.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, so he just sucks.
Oh, yeah. So they actually, at that point, you don't know he's drinking milk. I remember when they show him drinking at the beginning, I'm like, what is he drinking? What does the dude drink?
Oh, like a White Russian or something.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I knew it was milk right off the bat.
was
He's
like,
a
dude.
weird dude.
So, yeah, but the most nasty thing is, like, Trevette and Walker, they come in there to investigate the murder, and they, like, literally are like, oh, he was sitting over here? And they just assume that it was that guy's glass.
Yeah,
and it's this nasty, like, milk-encrusted glass that they have to cart off for evidence.
Hey, man, the Texas Rangers are real good with fingerprints. We know this now.
So they bring back the fingerprints, and they're like, oh, yeah, Donovan Riggs.
He's been connected to, like, 23 murders.
Yeah,
22 murders.
Each one, they were either destroyed by a lethal blow or
A stab wound to the chest.
stab wound. Although, in this
To
episode...
the heart.
In this episode, we saw him crack someone's neck, so...
That's a lethal
not-
blow.
I don't know.
He's
Yeah,
an
maybe
equal
not.
opportunist. Well, then apparently there's a lot more murders that were not connected to him because they were only looking for those 2 search phrases.
Good call. Good call. Okay, so Trent is dropping off supplies for a women's self-defense class at Alex's office, and for some reason, Sally's mom is talking to Alex.
She
We
might
don't
be
really
in
know
the
why.
self-defense class. Maybe they're just trying to tie it all together somehow.
I guess. So Sally's mother says, oh, I'm not going to be able to get Sally to practice today. And Trent's like, oh, I could take her. And Sally's mom is like, yeah, sure. So he takes her to practice via, I guess, a milkshake stand. And they're walking to practice. And there's this really awkward exchange where Sally asks Trent, an adult, if she's pretty.
Yeah.
And if she's as pretty as Alex Cahill,
Who's Walker's girlfriend.
Yeah, and Trent says, "You're both beautiful in your own special way," in a really condescending tone.
Oh, that's so bad.
And then Gary Busey comes out dressed like a priest and lays down the hurt.
Yeah, the viewer knows what's up.
Yeah. We know that it's not a priest. How did Gary Busey know to hang out at the Special Olympics practice to find Trent?
He's a pro.
I don't know. But he's in there disguised as a priest. He's talking to a bunch of people, I guess I'm assuming parents at the Special Olympics, and they're like, organized religion is built for people to be afraid of hell. Spirituality is for people who have been there. And then he looks over his shoulder and spots Trent, and he's like, okay, time to move into action.
You know what? You're absolutely right. Why is he at the practice field?
I don't know.
Because Trent
He's good.
only
He's really
just
good.
then agreed to take her there.
Yeah.
He's really good.
He was good. So he's like, well, I'm dressed as a priest, so I'll try to sucker punch Trent in an alley, essentially was probably his plan. So he approaches Sally and Trent, who are about to, I guess, go back to the car after practice. He goes, excuse me, sir, can you help me? And it lures Trent away from Sally into an alley, and then they bust into an epic fight.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one, because at this point in time, Trent has, like, way more mobility than Chuck Norris does. Mm-hmm. So he can do, like, all these flips and stuff. He, like, jumps off a car.
It was really good.
Gary Busey throws him through a car window.
Yeah, right through the windshield. That was good.
Yeah, it's not really clear why Gary Busey won, but it's basically because Gary Busey has the crazy factor.
I was very impressed by Gary Busey or Gary Busey's stunt doubles moves.
Yeah. I mean, if there's one thing that, like, main bad guys in Walker, Texas Ranger are really good at, it's taking a kick to the face standing. It's kind of odd. I think if a normal human gets a full-on kick in the face, they're, like, floored. But Gary Busey, he took several just standing and was fine.
He was good. So he essentially throws Trent through a windshield of a car, and you're like, okay, well, that's it, right? Well, Trent gets up, and they fight one more time, and Trent's a little shaken, and Gary Busey almost stabs him in the heart. At first, I thought maybe Trent caught it in his armpit, like some move or something, but no, he definitely got stabbed in the chest.
Yeah, for sure.
And then he leaves him for dead.
The only reason Gary Busey didn't stick around to make sure he had finished the job was that Sally snuck through the alley and brought people over there. It looked like construction workers or something came in.
Yeah, I think it was the village people, maybe. But,
it was like, you know.
But, yeah, well, you know, it was 1998 or so. So construction workers wore really tight jeans, so hard to tell.
Yeah, that's probably what scared Gary Busey off from finishing the job. But
absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, Sally witnessed it, and she's a witness to this attempted murder.
And might I say, a special witness per the episode's title, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, once again, way too on the nose here. So yeah, next scene is in a familiar place we've come to know very well, and it is the Walker, Texas Ranger soundstage hospital waiting room.
And this looks like the exact same hospital room as the other episode we watched recently.
Oh, yeah.
It's exactly
absolutely.
the
It's
same.
sort of a weird lavender color. And there are strange, nonsensical posters on the wall. Like there's a poster of just like a young woman riding a horse, and there's like no reason that's on a hospital waiting room wall, but it was there. And this is where we realize that Detective Carlos Sandoval and Trent are childhood friends. And we learn it in a really odd, disturbing, creepy flashback where, you know, Carlos is like, if only he had a gun, and Walker's like, well, you know the reason why he doesn't like guns. And then we get this weird, totally unnecessary detail here where, like, these kids are playing with a gun, and, like, a kid gets accidentally killed. And you see the kid, like, get shot, like, 5 times in slow motion.
Oh, no.
And then
sound effects?
Right. And then it's, like, in sepia tone. It's so weird. And they try to make it obvious that Carlos was there, too. So, like, as kids, they basically took part in, like, the accidental shooting of their friend.
Was Trent the one that shot him accidentally?
Yeah, I think that's the only other person he would have been is the kid that got shot. So
so that's what I took from it. He accidentally shot somebody as a kid when they were playing with guns.
Yeah.
And Carlos was there and witnessed it as well. So Carlos does know why he doesn't like guns.
He sure does, and now we do too. And we didn't need to know that.
But that's kind of like another moral compass moment where they're like, yes, you should always lock your gun up.
Really, I think it's more along the lines of them trying to set up Carlos and Trent's side project, Sons of Thunder.
I use guns, he uses his fists.
They're also sort of heavy-handed, but also extremely vague, because Walker's like, he's going to have to do something to take a stand, not with guns, but with something else. We'll talk about it later. He says something really cryptic about it.
Yeah, he said, well, if you can't fight him with guns, and you can't get him with your fists, we'll think of something. Like,
his mind.
Yeah, his mind. Like, telekinesis?
How does Detective Carlos wind up eating dinner over Sally's house and flirting with Sally's mother? How does that happen?
I don't really know. I guess Walker knows that there's a possibility this hitman's going to come after Sally because she witnessed what happened. Sally's mother's like, are we in danger? And Walker's like, probably not. But
just in case we're going to dump Detective Carlos here to get a free meal off you.
Right, he'll snore on your couch and take your minor child out running again and be totally useless. He went down with one punch.
This is the point where they start threading in the theme of a single mother with a disabled child and how hard it is. And how does the phrasing go down? He essentially says something like,
"Where's Sally's dad?"
Is that what he said?
Yeah, it's just like he starts to apologize, and I feel like he was more apologizing for the poor writing.
Yeah.
Where's Sally's dad?
Oh, I'm sorry. That was my line, but I feel so bad about it.
Yeah. And then she goes, "Oh, well, he left when he discovered that Sally was mentally handicapped." He says something like, "Well, I think you're really great." And then they have this really weird, like, awkward stare. And then you're like, are they going to get together?
It's possible they would have.
Bow, chicka, bow, wow.
That's possible.
Who's protecting who?
I know. It's like,
I mean,
man,
the show's already almost an hour, so.
Right. It's like, man, you do all of that and whip up a mean hamburger helper.
That's what he said, right? Something like that. And then there was this awkward pause that you were like, oh, they're implying that they're flirting. And you're like, really? So then they move on to something instantaneously after that. But you're just still left with the feeling of, what did I just see?
Yeah, when things like that happen in Walker, I kind of start trying to do like calculations of age of people. I have no idea how old Sally's mom is. I also have no idea how old Sally or Detective Sandoval are, so we assume that it's appropriate, but it seems inappropriate.
Also, at the beginning of the episode, when they're chumming around, Sally, Walker, and Alex, and Walker's kind of saying, like, you better watch out, Alex. Me and Sally,
Yeah, it's really weird.
They kind of
really
imply, like, they have Sally, like, have a crush on Walker. And then Walker kind of implies to Alex that he might get romantically with Sally, who has Down syndrome. Then you got Detective Carlos hitting on Sally's mom. And then Sally shakes down Trent to see if she's as pretty as Walker's girlfriend. Oh, wow.
Yeah, just a lot of unnecessary things going on.
It's pretty disturbing. It's pretty disturbing. I guess, they kind of topped it off with the ultimate unsettling piece, which is Gary Busey, because he's just kind of uncomfortable to watch at all times.
Yeah, so there's a point where, like, halfway through the show, I turned to Sarah and I was like, Gary Busey's going to try to kill her,
Oh, the kid? Oh, yeah, I thought that right away.
And Sarah's like, no, they're not going to have an assassin kill somebody with Down syndrome.
Now, after the fight scene with Trent, I was like, that's where this is going.
It
Gary
totally
Busey's going to have to kill a kid with Down syndrome.
Before we go any further, I just want to point out that another pet project they have is personal fitness on this show. And the doctor comes out after Trent's been stabbed, and they're like, how's he going to be? And he's like, he's pretty serious, but he's lucky he's in such great shape, or else he would have been dead.
I would have pulled the plug if he wasn't so hot.
He's lucky he's in such great shape. He must work at your dojo, Walker.
The next scene around there is they show the lead bad guy, Morris Foley, who hired Gary Busey. They're both playing pool, I'm assuming, back at Morris Foley's mansion. And kind of discussing the situation. Morris Foley's kind of like, you didn't finish the job like I hired you to do. And Donovan Riggs is like, well, he's not going to be testifying anytime soon, so it looks like you're covered. And Morris Foley's like, well, what about the witness? And Gary Busey goes, the retarded girl?
Oh, yeah, right, yeah.
And then they both sort of exchange this weird grin like, she won't be any problem.
Once I saw that, I knew that Gary Busey was going to go after Sally. His grin was so wicked and gross.
Sally puts together a sketch of Gary Busey, so they know that they need to be out looking for him. And the sketch it looks like a child, and it looks really creepy. But after they sort of finalize this sketch and they decide to put it out there, they have perhaps the best transition that has ever been in a Walker, Texas Ranger episode, where it basically flashes back and forth between this forensic sketch of Gary Busey and a still of Gary Busey's face.
yeah.
And it flashes back and forth
that
like 3 times.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Like, oh, yeah, they got it pretty good. It
like,
was like they were actually tracing the still of the video.
See, we did it.
So right after that great transition with Gary Busey's face, we actually go to the scene where Carlos is at the house and sleeping, and Sally is like staring at him as he's sleeping. And then he
You're
wakes up
loud.
like,
You snore.
But that part's basically useless. And then we go straight to the scene. Gary Busey's in the bar, smoking a cigar, drinking a glass of...
So gross.
Yeah.
I mean, the milks weren't bad enough, but a cigar with milk? I mean, that's...
Yeah, so, and that scene where he's like, you mean the retarded girl?
Yeah.
They laugh and he goes, got any milk?
Yeah. Yeah.
So then it's confirmed that he's drinking milk the whole
got
time.
Any milk?
So I guess they ran out of milk, so he had to go to a local watering hole. The bartender is the most informed bartender I've ever seen in my life. He actually has the same newspaper that Gary Busey's reading and recognizes Gary Busey's sketch that Sally had described in the paper and calls the Rangers.
Yeah, immediately, while looking at Gary Busey.
He was pretty smooth about it. Yeah.
Yeah, no one would have ever known.
And that's how Walker and Trevette get into another fight.
Oh, yeah.
The whole point of it was so that Gary Busey would know they've identified him via the sketch.
I think once he saw the bartender on the phone, he immediately knew that the Rangers were coming. So he goes to the toughest guy in the bar and throws down like $1,000, just saying that there's going to be 2 Rangers coming in here. I need you to take care of them. Yeah. And then the other tough guy's like, well, why wouldn't I just take this money? And of course, Gary Busey,
he cracks some skulls.
Yeah, he proves that he's not messing around.
Again, every time he kept doing that stuff, I was like, wow, I was not expecting Gary Busey to throw down as much as he does in this episode.
He's like a caged tiger that's been just kind of like sitting and getting fat and everything. And you're like, man, that tiger, it's so not dangerous because it's so fat. But then in the end, it's still a tiger.
He definitely was stretching his paws. This scene was in there because they're like, oh, well, we probably should show Gary Busey's character that Sally does remember what he looks like and would be a feasible witness. Because they were like, well, if we just go kill her without any reason, it doesn't really make any sense. So let's throw this pointless bar scene in there.
When Walker and Trevette show up to the bar, there's a welcoming committee for them. And they dispatch of those guys pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. There's some pretty ridiculous hijinks with fighting and pool cues. Classic.
Yeah, the pool cue is a nice,
Yeah.
nice addition. I like that.
And then they pin the guy down and get the information of where he was sitting. I would think if they wanted a print, they would ask the guy for the money that he gave them. But whatever. They found a empty glass that had remnants of milk in it. And it's like covered in fingerprints, completely covered in them.
Yeah.
Like even on like the horrible non-HD crappy version that we can watch on this, you can still see it smudged all over with fingerprints. And they're like,
yeah, they must have put like somebody's fingers in like paste just to be like, we got to make it look like fingerprints. So,
there's probably a deleted scene too where Walker's like, yeah, he probably smells the milk and says he's drinking the unpasteurized stuff.
I actually know the farm this came from.
This is the only place you can get it.
Once we get out of there, they have his prints and they get the name, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because at this point, they don't really know who they're dealing with. They just have the sketch. So now they have the name, they have photos, they know that the guy has a record. That's when we go to the scene at the bar where Gary Busey's character goes after the sketch artist, which at this point in the episode, I had totally forgotten that's who she was.
Right. I was like, oh, she looks familiar, but why is she here?
Yeah, why is he hitting on this woman? Like, I don't get it. Like... He does spend some time gaining the attention of this, I would say, young woman, but...
Gary Busey age woman.
Yeah. I mean, they seem to be hitting it off.
Same age bracket.
She's like, oh, I got to go home. He's like, well, can I walk you to your car?
He's been really nice. And he paid for her dress.
I want to make sure you're safe.
Yeah.
I was expecting him to be a perfect gentleman when they got to her car, but...
I think at that point he pulls out a knife and he's like, I'm going to need your car and your purse or something like that.
That's some information.
But we kind of don't really see what happens after that.
There's a guy in like jeans and like work boots, a heavy shirt and a trench coat and like a weird hat. And he's presumably, like they try to make you think that he's jogging with his dog.
Jean jogging. Yeah,
right.
It's a Texas thing, it must be.
Right. It's like, what? No way. And the guy's like, what's wrong, dog? And the dog's barking at this trunk. And he's like, what's that under the car? Is that blood? And then he like touches it and smells it. And he's like,
he smells
This episode's packed with some goodies here.
It's just packed with explanations, things that you don't need to do this, you don't need to show any of this. But we find out, I was kind of surprised that he had killed the woman. So she was in the trunk dead of her own car.
And that's when I said,
I was like, whoa.
23 alleged murders.
So Walker and Trevette show up at the crime scene after that, and as soon as he figures out who it is, or as soon as they tell him who it is, he immediately is like, it's Riggs. It's got to be Riggs.
He's going to get Sally.
Oh, yeah.
Which, once again, why would the sketch artist know where Sally lives? That's...
Doesn't seem like a good target for Riggs. Why?
Do they literally give credit in the newspaper? They're like, this police sketch masterwork was done by so-and-so. And then he Googled her name or something.
Right.
Well, they wouldn't have Googled. They would have used...
He went through the phone book and killed everybody with the same name.
I don't know. It's 1998. It could have used Alta Vista.
Yeah, Alta Vista.
Ask Jeeves.
We mistakenly credited the police sketch in the newspaper, and that's how he was able to track her down.
And now she's dead.
Before he killed her, he got the first name of the girl who described it to her, and he's killing every Sally in the metropolitan Dallas area.
True, he's pulling a Terminator on her.
But if he was able to find the police sketch artist so easily, he's going to find Sally super easy. So does it really just flash to the end bonanza here?
Well, I think at this point we know that Carlos is going out for a run.
And he's protecting her at her house still.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going out for a run, and I think that's where we take it home, right?
For sure.
They have some awkward dialogue, I'm sure, during that point. As this episode is
weird
full of
dialogue. Do you like running? No, I love running. Shut up.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I mean... He's protecting her while she's training for the Special Olympics. Carlos gets decked by Gary Busey. He pretty much immediately takes him out, right?
Oh, yeah.
One punch.
I was like, we're going to get a fight between Carlos and Gary Busey, but literally he decks him. But not before Carlos tells Sally to run. At this point, I'm like, oh my God, Gary Busey's going to kill Sally. I mean, or at least try to kill Sally. We know he's not going to actually do it.
If we didn't have all these random shitty dialogue moments, it could have actually been a fight between Carlos and Gary Busey. Maybe a roundhouse kick or two. Come on, give me something.
At the same time, it did not disappoint what happens next.
You didn't want to see Carlos holding down the button on the water fountain for Sally to drink? I think she can do that on her own, bud.
Yeah, I don't know if that was really valuable.
Yeah, that was padding for time.
But at this point, she's off. She's running.
She is an Olympian, so it takes a little bit for Gary Busey runs after her and grabs her, turns her around, looks her dead in the eyes, and you're expecting Gary Busey to then stab her through the heart when Walker jump kicks him.
I don't know if Walker was swinging through trees and then
appeared
he
out
sort
of
of
nowhere.
had a downward trajectory towards Gary Busey, but
I just had to bring this up. He's holding her head
like he's gonna snap her neck,
like a cantaloupe.
Yeah,
and he's pulling back her face. It's a really weird way.
Yeah.
And the camera gets all slow mo. It's
really weird.
It's like he's looking at her like, "Am I really gonna kill this kid?"
They don't give enough time for you to think that he thinks that.
You get a shot of his face where he's like, "Can I do this?
What do I do here, Walker? Please take me out. Please take me out."
And what ensues, I think, is one of the better fight scenes. And maybe it's just the Gary Busey factor. Maybe it's the later in the series. The sound effects I thought were really good.
Oh, my God.
The editing was insane. I feel like half of the moves were cut and repeated multiple times on different zoom levels. What ensues is just, I think, one of the better fight scenes.
Chuck Norris versus Gary Busey, magnifique. It was awesome. And they have some really good choreography for someone of Gary Busey's physique. I was, again, impressed. And they actually have Gary Busey deliver a roundhouse kick to Walker.
That's right. When I saw that, I was like, oh.
He tries to give him another one, and Walker ducks.
They're going back and forth, equally matched, until Walker finally overpowers Gary Busey and delivers rapid succession roundhouse kicks to him. Every one of them is complete.
You're saying that these are discrete roundhouse kicks?
Yeah.
Because I went back and watched this a couple of times. First of all, I counted 5 full roundhouse kicks, not the ones before it. And I thought that all 5 of those at the end, this is the final kick.
Yeah.
I just kind of assumed that those were all one kick that they edited over and over again.
Yeah.
But it was really tough to see. Either way, the final 5 were just
Yeah, I went back and looked, and for sure the last 3 are the same kick. Like 100% the same kick.
They might be the same kick, but to a viewer, it's like he did it 3 times.
And you know what? Gary Busey felt it 3 times.
If there's a sound effect, it counts.
Oh my God. And the sound effects in the scene. There's a lot of odd sounds coming from Gary Busey's character. I don't know if it was actually him or there's some weird grunts and stuff.
There's definitely one where he's like, yeah.
Wow. Well, just for the fact that Gary Busey delivers a roundhouse kick to Walker, and then Walker's like, oh yeah? And then takes him out with multiple roundhouse kicks at the end to seal the deal was amazing.
Gary Busey gets kicked multiple times, lying on the ground, groaning. Sally runs out from behind a tree, hugs Walker, and he says, "You're safe now." You'd think they'd cuff Gary Busey? No. He's down for the count. Cut to courtroom scene. Alex is in court. Where's her star witness, Trent Malloy? Oh, he's still in the hospital. Okay. Closing arguments from the defense attorney. Looks like he's going to get off scot-free because there's no witness. Boom. Courtroom doors swing open. In rolls Trent Malloy. Trent Malloy takes the stand, and for some reason there's a giant bouquet of flowers on the stand. Don't know why. It's a courtroom. Then cut to Special Olympics.
I think at this point we're at some sort of higher level finals, right? We're in El Paso, I think they said.
San Antonio, maybe?
Oh, San Antonio. Yeah, she's running around the track, and go figure, she wins.
Yeah. And, well, she's being propelled by a really awful song that we think was written specifically for this episode called Clear Sailing.
Clear Sailing.
Sounds just like that. Also sounds just like the song they used at the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
It was, yeah. I'm sure, the same artist, and they just changed the words.
Yeah, it's like a Shania Twain wannabe. And she's like...
With
she's
MIDI
like,
drums.
The wind is
so
at her back today. Nothing can stand in her way. Clear sailing. And she's not running to the finish line. She's running to Walker's open arms.
How touching.
It's beautiful.
And this time she totally skips her mother and runs right to Walker.
That's right.
Yeah.
After she wins.
Right. Let's face it, the mom probably loves seeing that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Fade to black. Great episode. Wow. When we come back, we'll do our individual Roundhouse rating.
And we're back. On a scale of 0 to 10, Adam, how would you rate this episode?
7.
That's it. Just wham, 7.
Yeah. And here's why. Okay.
Strong 7.
The fight scenes were awesome. Gary Busey was ridiculous the whole episode. He was perfect for this show. It didn't have the supernatural ridiculousness that we have in some of them. It didn't have the explosions, didn't have the car chases, but they more than made up with it with the fighting sequences. And they kind of shorthanded Walker a little bit, like didn't give him too much to do because they had so many other characters. But he did multiple roundhouse kicks at the end of the episode, and that's all you can ask for in a Walker episode. What about you, Bob?
Coming into this, I thought it was going to be a 9. But once again, we had too many stories. And I was like, I feel like you wasted Gary Busey on this episode.
Yeah.
And you had to take on the whole Special Olympics thing and the mother and all these other side stories, and no one cares about any of this. So I dropped it down to a 6.
Wow.
I'm sad to say. Plus no explosions, but I do agree. The fights in Gary Busey is what made this.
Evan, what do you got?
I came into this not knowing what to expect. The episode is pretty bizarre, and I appreciate that. It seems like in these later seasons, they're really trying to deal with certain issues or certain social issues, but they do it so poorly, and they try to smush so many things into one episode that it just becomes like a total mishmash of craziness. I love that you jump into this episode and immediately see Gary Busey sipping milk at a bar, and then he snaps some dude's neck. And I do agree that even though there were no explosions in this and no vehicle chases, the 4 fights, pretty sweet, including one in a bar where a biker dude literally unplugs the jukebox when the Rangers walk in, and they show him do it.
Yep.
So, there's that, and Gary Busey just over the top. Mm-hmm. I give it a 7. So, perhaps appropriately, this gives us an average Roundhouse rating of 6.6666, the number of the beast, Gary Busey. Boots to the face. We think this was 1 in a million, or at least 1 in 200. But let us know what you think on social media, or emailing us at roundhouseroulette@gmail.com. When we come back, we'll spin the Roundhouse Roulette wheel to select next week's episode. And we're back. Bob, you ready to spin that wheel?
Oh yeah, buddy.
Oh my God.
Blown apart.
Unbelievable. Escaping from prison, a mad bomber vows to kill all those responsible for putting him there, including Walker and Alex.
Oh, man. I mean, okay, so this week's episode did not have any explosions. I think the over-under on this one is going to be like 6 explosions.
You have to hope.
You had me at Mad Bomber there. That's going to be unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. It's a season premiere, too, so you know they're going to go over the top. I can't wait. So we hope you'll join us next week when we share our reactions to Season 4, Episode 1, Blown Apart. Share your opinions with us on Facebook and Instagram at Roundhouse Roulette and Twitter at RoundhousePod. And rate and review us on iTunes or wherever you get your fine podcasts. Until next week,
may the eyes of the Ranger be upon you.
When you're in Texas, look behind you. Oh, 'cause that's where the Ranger's gonna be.